Welcome to Gaia's Love, a podcast of brief messages to help humanity bridge the gap to the new earth. My name is Vivienne Gerard. It is my delight to be a scribe for consciousness today, sharing the wisdom that flows through from Source. Here we go. Episode 66. It is Monday today. It's gorgeous here in Cincinnati. Sun is shining, sky is blue, the leaves are all falling. It is just such a beautiful time to be in the Midwest. It is also a new moon, a new moon tonight. New moon in Libra, which is about partnerships, and to me it feels like completion of karma and justice and balance. You know, this time where the night is dark, the sky is dark, we have millions of stars, and the moon is hidden from our view. And so it allows for all of these possibilities to be explored. For many of us, when we look at the night sky and we see the moon, that's what we focus on. And when the moon is really bright, we don't always see all the stars. When the moon is dark, when it's hidden or new, as they describe it, the stars can be brighter than they ever are because there's nothing dimming their light. I've been at my friend's farm before, which is about an hour and a half outside of Cincinnati, and it's just far enough that it feels like you're in another world, because when we lay in the grass on the hill and we look up at the sky, and we've been there before when it's a dark moon or a new moon, there's millions of stars, millions of them, billions of them. When we're laying there just looking up at the sky, it's like layer upon layer of stars, and you don't know where one ends and the other begins. And sometimes when we are talking and chatting and looking up at the sky, it's like we can see these patterns and grids and blueprints. You know, the stars, they're just magical. And I feel that every time we have a new moon, just the infinite possibilities that await. And it's simply our choice to pause and pay attention and be intentional. Be intentional about what we want to create. So that is the magic I bring on this Monday morning of a new moon. Libra is about partnerships, and balance. When I was meditating before recording this, I just kept thinking of the word sacred. You know, sacred partnerships. I have seen the word sacred mistyped before. When you flip a couple letters, it becomes scared, which, I mean, you have to laugh, right? It's so perfect because it is super scary to be in sacred partnership with those that we love. It's super scary because it's vulnerable, and we could be rejected. And then, right? And then what? So I'm going to focus on the word sacred. But just naming that scared sometimes goes along with it. When I was reflecting about sacred relationships, the first one that came to mind is the one that we have with ourselves. When we are in sacred relationship with ourselves, I'll speak for me. When I am in sacred relationship with myself, my whole body, my whole system, all of my organs, my blood moving through my body, my breath, my skin, the hair on the ends of my skin, my eyes, my mouth, like every part of my physical body shows when I am in sacred relationship with myself, meaning I am in truth. I am in alignment. I am being the fullest expression of myself. My body feels that. It knows that. There's a peace and a calm, a steadiness, a joy that my body feels. It bubbles in me, through me, and out of me into the relationships around me. When I am in alignment, my partnership with myself is solid. I can feel it in every cell in my body. When something is out of integrity, when I am not feeling that sacredness in the partnership with myself, my body starts to talk to me. It gives me these messages. So my stomach twists up, or my throat clogs, or my heart starts beating super fast from fear, or my head hurts because I'm blocking the flow of love and support from my God, my source, into my body. My nerve endings get jagged and sharp, and I feel stressed and intense tension at times. That is always a signal for me first that I'm out of sacred partnership with me. There's something in me that isn't solid, or isn't, the word really is aligned. That isn't aligned. And so that's where I pause, and I go in, and I sit with myself in meditation. I journal, I listen to music, I take a salt bath, I walk with the trees, I do whatever is needed to come back to that place of knowing and certainty and truth for myself. And so each of us have our own ways of doing that, or of knowing when we're in integrity and when we're not. But I believe it's impossible to be in integrity with the relationships around us when we're not in integrity with ourselves first. And so when we align on the new moon in Libra with the infinite possibilities of a wide open sky, when we're really quiet and we call in the vibration of truth and balance and harmony, and we call it in for ourselves first, that is a powerful activation to claim on a new moon. It's so powerful. And it's possible. It's possible for everyone. So I bring that forward for you to contemplate. And I so encourage quiet time around any astrological shift, which probably happens every single day. But there are some in a month that feel more potent than others, and the new moon and the full moon, for sure. So first, to me, feels like sacred partnership with self. How aligned in integrity are we with our own beings first? And then how do we show up from that space of truth and certainty? How do we show up in the relationships around us? How do we create sacred partnerships with our spouses, with our children, with our co-workers, with our friends, with our neighbors? How do we show up and deepen, I talked about this in my newsletter, deepen our relationships? To me, if I were to answer that question, I would say it comes from truth. Sacred to me means truth. Our own unique truth, and then collective truth. And so when I am in alignment, I'll speak for myself, when I am in alignment with myself, when I know that my sacred partnership with my soul is solid and clear, and I am moving in the direction of the highest path for my life, I show up in the partnerships around me differently. I am steadier, stronger, not willing to budge on things that would take me out of alignment or take me out of integrity. And that shakes up, it shakes up our partnerships with others. Perhaps the easiest one to reflect on is that with our children. For me, I learned how to parent from my parents and from the parents I saw reflected around me. And I also knew, I didn't want a regular relationship with my kids where I was the boss and everything I said had to go, and they always had to be afraid of, my anger or my judgment, and there was always discipline. I just didn't want a harsh, tension-filled relationship with my children. And from a very young age, I started talking to them as grown-ups. I mean, I would use big words, and I would speak to them, without the sing-song voice that many of us use with little children. And I don't know, we created really cool relationships. But I remember specifically there was a time where it was after my divorce from their father. My son and I were talking about something. He couldn't have been more than 9 or 10. And he said to me, "I know you're not okay, and you're telling me you're okay, but I can tell you're not. Please don't lie to me." This little beautiful soul calling me out, right? Showing me where I was out of integrity with myself and how he could feel it. So when I was cuddling him at bedtime that night, we made an agreement, we made a pact that we would never lie to each other about when something was wrong. We would always share it. And we have reminded each other of that many, many times in the years since then. He's now almost 15 and a half, 16. It is a sacred partnership to show up real, to not cover up or pretend when there is something that needs to be expressed. And it has blossomed into the most beautiful child-parent relationship I could have possibly asked for. The same with my daughter. There is just a trust and a truth-based agreement that forms the foundation of our partnerships. When we have that with ourselves, and then we begin to experience that in some of the relationships around us that we're creating, it becomes harder and harder to be in relationships with people where we don't have that. That's what I found for myself. It creates ripples. And so those relationships where you can't show up in integrity, or you can't show up and create sacred truth between you and another, those relationships tend to move away. They tend to fall back from your focus. I want to say weeding out, but it's not that those are bad relationships. They're just not as sacred, as deep, as trusting. And when the commitment to ourselves is to be constantly expanding the depth and the sacredness of our containers, then some of those relationships tend to move away. Yeah, so new moon in Libra. I bring this topic forward for you to contemplate, and I guess the deepest invitation, or the biggest ask I would make of each of us, is do the self-work first. Become so sacred in how you show up for yourself first that it will just naturally impact every other relationship in your life. So maybe that means you meditate tonight on the new moon, or you just sit quietly and listen to music, or you go to bed early and lay there and reflect. You'll know, but align with the power of the energies of the evening, and magic happens. Yeah. I send you so much love. Thank you for tuning in to today's vibration. Let's take this message of pure love out into all of our communities and continue expanding love here on Gaia. So much love from my heart to yours.